Hi everyone, welcome back to Project No Buy. In today's video, we're going to talk about me not being an influencer, and so therefore, I don't have to shop like one. Okay, so this is kind of in response to some of the comments that I have seen floating around, but also to my thought process and how it kind of changed in the process of trying to do a no-buy year. This is actually my second year trying to do a no-buy year. I have not been successful either year. And so, Project No Buy has just become about the general reluctance to buy things and the general critical thinking that we want to retain and prioritize when confronted with the constant decisions of what to buy, what not to buy, and why. So if that sounds good to you and you're not subscribed, feel free to do that. Who am I talking about subscribing to this channel? We generally don't do that here. Anyway, I wanted to talk about this idea of I'm not an influencer and therefore I don't need to shop like one. And I, in general, actually kind of think that influencing as a job is unethical, and this is not the video where I go into that. I want that to be a lot more carefully presented and researched, so that's not going to be the thesis of today's video. But I've seen these comments as well on some of my own videos as well as those of other creators that, people sharing the sentiment that I'm not an influencer, so I don't need to shop like one, and it being kind of an odd phenomenon where we're exposed to all these examples of people shopping and hauling and showing constant new things and reviewing things ostensibly, right? Like that's what some of these people are supposedly doing, and sharing the new releases, kind of saving us from having to buy all the stuff because they're doing it for us, right? But it is a little bit of an odd phenomenon because even being exposed to these examples, these models, I guess, models of desire, as Luke Burgess would call it in the book that I talked about back in December, and even in the book Biology by Martin Lindstrom. I guess he's a branding expert. I'm currently reading Brandwashed by the same Martin Lindstrom. And even in the book Biology, he talks about how the mirror neurons are firing in our minds. And I think my next video actually after this is going to be about the PR hauls, and I'm going to be doing a personal dive into what happened in my mind, what went on in me internally when I saw these things before. And, I'll be doing my best. It's hard to kind of retroactively go back and see, but I did have a little bit of that kind of wanting to be an influencer inside me as well, even if it wasn't a fully fledged desire. And the mirror neurons were definitely firing, in other words, we'll put it that way. But we'll save the kind of practical hands-on examples for that video, since I don't want to fill all the videos on my channel with TikTok examples, just for the people who like to keep it chill around here. So going back to I'm not an influencer, so I don't need to shop like one. One of the biggest things that happened during my first no-buy year and continuing on as I try my second is I rewired my identity as a consumer, or rather I reclaimed my identity as a normal person. And so I removed myself from the influence of all the things that we're exposed to want, exposed to buy, exposed to emulate by striving to have the same stuff or be in the similar environments or present in the same kind of ways, to have the same kind of style, to collect the same kind of things, whatever it might have been. I first removed myself from watching that kind of content, and then I also reacquainted myself with personal values that helped realign myself or help me get back on the path that I feel more comfortable being on. And that is the path of definitely not being an influencer. We don't accept sponsorships on this channel. And by we, I mean me. This is a one-person operation. I do not accept any PR or am not interested in pursuing that avenue at all. And I try not to feature stuff too prominently, stuff in general, too prominently on this channel, aside from when it's personally relevant in terms of not buying things, examining my attitudes, my regrets, my things that I've learned from the mistakes that I've made, and using it as a tool in that way. And so periodically I go through these kind of urges to, I don't want to say declutter, but to simplify additionally. and to let go of things that really don't serve or are adding more baggage than benefit to my life. And so there may even be like a summer declutter on this channel as well. So, I'm not trying to get you excited to see a decluttering video, but my point is I rewired my relationship to not just consuming stuff, I guess, but stuff in general, not just shopping, but the things that I'm surrounded by in my everyday life. And maybe this is a notable point as well to those of you who've been on my channel for a long time, who've seen my videos. You might know that I have a collection of purses on the shelves behind me. And I actually have been finding myself less attached to keeping the full collection. And it's become kind of an arbitrary thing where I know I have too many purses and I don't actually enjoy cycling through all of them with the quantity that I have. I'm not actually getting the enjoyment that it's worth to keep all of them even on the shelves behind me. You can't see them all. I'm not trying to display all of them on this channel for obvious reasons, like I've already said. But it's a day that I didn't know for sure would come. And I am definitely not decluttering my whole collection here or anything like that. But I am reaching a point that I'm not attached to stuff in the same ways. And so just having the different models of these handbags doesn't really make the cut anymore. That's not a good reason to have it or keep it. It's kind of like what I said back in the stationery TikTok videos about how something being cute is not a great reason to buy it. Just because it's cute or I like it doesn't mean I should have it or keep it if somebody else can get use out of it. And again, I'm not at the point where I'm going to resell or gift these away, because there are people in my direct life that may actually want and use these items. But it is interesting that I was at a point in my life at some point that I made this display, right, to house those bags. And I still have plenty of them, right? I still have enough to fill up the shelves that, make it look intentional and curated as it is, even with less. And so it's not a matter of just giving up all of the things that I used to enjoy buying and appreciating, looking at, touching, interacting with, wearing, using. It's not I didn't get rid of all my makeup, I didn't get rid of all my clothes, I'm not going to get rid of all of my bags. But it is interesting to observe the change within myself. And it goes all the way up from the top of the pyramid, I guess, of seeing influencer content and at some points wanting to be an influencer myself. I was never gung-ho about it. I never really tried to become a product influencer. But there were times in my kind of undergrad college days when I was seeing all of the makeup hauls, the Lush hauls, all of that I did write a few blog posts about personal style, and I think I did some reviews of Lush products or something like that as well. Like, I was dipping my toe into the waters of whatever product influencing was at the time, and I never really pursued it. And I, when media turned to video, I never really even attempted that in a serious way. And the first attempt was actually a conscious consumerism channel prior to this one, the Project No Buy. But I didn't really feel like I had anything meaningful to say until I found myself turning back towards conscious consumer ideals. So that's kind of my story, I guess, of being at the top of the pyramid of like, do I want to be an influencer? Do I want to make product discourse something that I try to make money off of? And a lot of people are, I think, in this boat and are just not going to be successful just because it's a big pool of people who want to do that, and not everybody is going to get to be making money and making it their job. And so there's that, trying to be an influencer. So I guess influencing is really at the top there of being an influencer and shopping like one. And then you've got the aspirational influencers, people who want to do that. And then you've got the people exposed to influencers, right? Maybe it's like some kind of multi-level marketing scheme of influencing, right? There's the real influencers, actually the companies above them, I guess, right? Sending them products and using the influencers as pawns to kind of sell their wares and get the word out for not free, but like essentially free if it's just PR, or, sponsored posts are possibly cheaper than doing a fully fledged ad campaign with celebrities and videographers and whatever, set design. So influencing is beneficial to the companies at the top. So I guess the real multi-level marketing goes back to the corporations. But taking the higher level out of it, you've got the influencers, the aspirational wannabe influencers who are kind of maybe even getting their products off of influencer recommendations and kind of disseminating it from there. Got the people who kind of are on the fringes observing all these things, and they don't want to be influencers, but they do want to be hot girls or cool girls or whatever the influencers are talking about. They want to be people with style. They want to be people who have the right stuff to be accepted. They want to feel safe and secure, whatever it is. And then, maybe you have the people that aren't even really affiliated with it on the bottom there, people not on social media, but they still feel the impacts in their everyday life and their community because it's just impossible not to be affected in some way. So, there's this kind of MLM pyramid of influencer culture. And so the impacts of what influencers create and what they promote and what they talk about kind of trickles down to everybody in society. It's kind of like that argument of, again, an argument I see a lot, or even received a little bit myself on some of those videos that I made reacting to influencer videos about people can do what they want with their money, stop nitpicking these people's homeware tastes or whatever they want to have in their homes or whatever, let people live and let live. Things like this where it's like, sure, but their trickle-down effects are affecting me. And me and others, people thinking about people younger than me or more mentally vulnerable or different times of their lives, it could be me again. I'm not saying I'm removed from it or morally superior than all of these issues, all these aspects. And so it can affect me again, and I don't want to be in a position where that happens. So, that's kind of why I'm still here and I'm still making these videos, and I'm cataloging these kind of changes that I experience within myself, having tried to do a no-buy, and now as a result thinking critically about everything that I am confronted with the urge to buy. And so I guess, looking backwards, what I used to do is consume influencer content for entertainment, which then led to shopping for entertainment. And the shopping was at least partially triggered by that content that I consumed for entertainment. And so it kind of perpetuated the cycle of consuming and buying. And then, there's the obvious problem that some of these influencers are in the business of overconsumption. It's basically what it is. And yes, they get write-offs. Yes, it's their job, but I don't think that makes it acceptable to model overconsumption in this way. And I guess a lot of times as well, the marketing is not, so it's targeted, but it's not targeted. The influencer doesn't spend time distinguishing members of their audience or trying to make sure that people who don't need the product will know that they don't need it. And I was thinking of examples of things that I have in my own life that are maybe egregiously expensive. And obviously the most obvious one for me in my life is my instrument. I'm a professional musician, and so I have a thousands of dollars instrument, right? It's more expensive than anybody who's not a professional needs to do their craft. But the thing with me waving around a viola on screen here that's thousands of dollars, and even telling you to buy one, like, that's so far from the realms of realistic or reasonable, and it's fairly obvious that if you don't play the viola, you don't need to spend so much money on a viola. Now, all of this might be happening at a smaller scale when it comes to products that influencers are recommending. Not always, because some of these products are really expensive, right? There are hundreds of dollars products here. The Ninja Creamy made its rounds on the social medias, and that's between $100 and $200, if I'm not mistaken. There are like slushy makers, cocktail makers, outdoor furniture, things that make the rounds that are still hundreds of dollars. The Dyson Airwrap is a multi-hundreds of dollars thing that not everybody needs. But that's not the focus of the way that it's presented online. The influencers who make it look like it's a life-changing product, or even say that it's a life-changing product. We talked about some of these in my previous video, actually, about ambition, and the girls in that video saying, this changed my life, or you're not living if you don't do this, or whatever. And so, it would be like me saying, you're not living if you don't have a really nice viola. Like, that's not something that's going to fool anybody or make somebody want to buy that particular viola. Nor do I make money on that or have the ability to make money on instrument sales. And so, I'm just trying to relate it to, I guess, examples from a non-influencer life where the most expensive things a normal person has, and a normie, I'm not trying to assign value to normal or not, or say what's weird or not. This is just my way of saying non-influencer. The most expensive things a non-influencer would have is something that's probably very personal to them, and they have a really good reason for spending that much money on that thing. And in the landscape of influencing, it kind of loses, that value, I guess, is kind of lost. The value of spending more on what we actually value, actually have a use for, actually have a personal connection with. And in its place is fostered the it girl list of products and this way of buying yourself in to a sector of society, a group of society, a certain set of values, even if you have the right stuff. And it's all connected to the way influencers present themselves and trying to emulate, I guess, this aesthetic version of a life that can be presented online. And so if we don't want to look like that, and part of the problem, I guess, is that we can be fooled into thinking we want to look like that. That's where I was. Again, I speak from personal experience. This is not shade to you if you look at influencer content and you want to look like that. But I do invite you to reflect on why that is, and if you think it's innate or if you think it's exposure related, and whether you're okay with not looking like an influencer or having a house that's not picture perfect or doing activities that are not influencer friendly activities, or whatever it is, photo opportunity moments, Instagrammable, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, if you're really in that mindset because that is what you truly enjoy, or if you're in that mindset because that's what you've been exposed to. Are you shopping like an influencer because you actually like those things? Or are you shopping like an influencer because you've watched a bunch of influencers and now you're buying what you saw? And I can pinpoint things now, even now, after doing an initial closet declutter, after not buying things for 2 years or trying not to. I can pinpoint things that I purchased recently, maybe not in the no-buy years, maybe actually a couple of things are. But I might save the specifics for a future video, but there are things that I can pinpoint that I bought because I thought I liked them at the time more than I actually did. And I now, having removed myself from that mentality of see it, want it, buy it, I am not seeing it, I don't want it, I already bought some of these things, and I am now realizing that they're not the greatest choice for my life, and I know I can get by on a lot less. I guess even a quantity of stuff can be something that's normalized. And my threshold is higher, or was higher in the years past than it is now. And what I'm having to do is let go of things, rehome things, try to responsibly declutter these things to a threshold that I now want to aspire to, which is the complete 180 of where I used to be when I was in that influencer sphere of wanting to be more like that, wanting to emulate that. And so shopping like an influencer really backfires when you come back to earth and you realize, no, I'm just a normal person. I can still like stuff like clothes and fashion, but I definitely don't even need to have as much as I do to express that joy and express that kind of fashionable taste even. And again, this is not the video where I'm talking about personal style and where that comes from, or even going into my personal style and how it's changed, but maybe that's something I'll do later in the summer as well. It's definitely something I'll do later this summer. I do have it planned. But even if it's not style for you, you can look around your house, and again, using you figuratively here, not you, but like one can look around their house, one can look in their makeup drawer, one can look in the closet if that's a category of interest for you, your refrigerator even. Anything a person can buy and own can be influenced. And we have to remember that everything that is put online is a choice. It's there for a reason. We just don't know what that person's reason was when they posted, unless they tell us directly, in which case we can't even always believe what they say, myself included. I do try to be very open about my intentions here, but I know sometimes that gets lost because some of the comments I get about my attitudes towards not buying things being negative, these people obviously haven't been exposed to my own kind of personal mission of being on a personal no-buy, trying to detach myself from the urges to buy stuff and examining how those urges came to be there and how to manage them more constructively in the present and the future. But even in my attempts to be open, there are a lot of things that you can't know, and I may or may not have curated. For example, you don't know how wealthy I want to appear. You don't know how intelligent I want to seem to you. My choices that I make may or may not be designed to make you think that I am a certain age or a certain political party or a certain whatever, insert fill in the blank here. You know, I may be curating these choices, I may not. And you, the viewer, can never know for sure. This is giving me flashbacks to all of my chats on personal style and how you can never really be sure what the person wants to communicate with what they're wearing, because it's all based on the perceptions of the receiver. You know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's stuff and its virtue signals or whatever signals are in the eye of the community, in the eye of the beholders as well. Anyway, going back to the original idea here, I'm not an influencer, so I don't need to shop like one. I do finally feel like I've come through this tunnel of wanting to make my house, my style, my makeup drawer, my whatever it is, look a certain way. And I finally really feel like I've let go of those ties. And that doesn't really have any bearing on what I want to buy anymore. And now I know for a fact that I will be eating these words sometime in the future. I have a feeling, right? Because like the commenter said in my previous video, again, those of you who think you're immune from some of these urges and impulses just haven't been shown the right marketing yet, right? There is something that I can be persuaded to want and maybe even to buy despite my best efforts to Project No Buy. Hopefully not, but there probably will be something. And I will make an effort to discuss that with you here on camera before any actions are made so we can analyze that moment together. But again, you know, what is it going to be that trips me up into wanting to buy, wanting to shop again? It won't be because I'm trying to be an influencer. At least there's that, right? Again, unless I do another 180 and end up 360 back where I started. But that's part of why I'm here. Continuing my openness here, part of why I'm here is to keep myself on the right path and to walk alongside those of you who are on this path with me. And with that sentiment, I will wrap up this video here today and say bye for now and see you in the next one.